For my video essay, I will be looking at Werner Herzog's film Stroszek and discussing how the American dream for first-generation immigrants moving from foreign countries to America is unachievable. I will also be going into depth on how Herzog's idea of immigration is sugar-coated to individuals' real experiences. Herzog follows a man named Bruno Stroszek, who was recently released from prison. He decides, since he has next to nothing to his name, to move to America with Eva, a prostitute and neighbor Scheitz, who has a nephew in Wisconsin. The travel process for the three is glossed over and left to be assumed it was an easy process. They all arrived in America quickly and safely, though the transportation they used is unclear. They seem to already be achieving this American dream, as they already have acquired jobs as a mechanic and waitress and have a place to live. The whole feel of the film seems too good to be true, very fairy tale-like. The fairy tale expression can be seen when the three arrive to America and begin to explore the city. According to Jane Mount's reading on Werner Herzog, Herzog states that this fairy tale expression brings us hope for a new beginning for the trio. This fairy tale dream, however, is not reality. It's unrealistic how smoothly Herzog made the whole moving process, especially for the trio being first-generation immigrants with little to no experience traveling before this major move, as well as how easily it was for the three to navigate around the city once they arrived to America, such as purchasing a car or directly knowing how to get to Scheitz's nephew's home without ever living in America before. Though it is unrealistic, Herzog is able to use the trio to show what people imagine the American dream to look like. Earning so much success so early on, getting jobs and a home, and appearing to be financially stable is what the American dream is. However, Herzog sugarcoats and leaves out the real struggles immigrants face, one of the major issues being how successful you can get without an education. In Ann Peterson's article, What the American Dream Looks Like for Immigrants, she talks about Ana Maria's parents who moved from Mexico in the early 1960s. She says her parents didn't talk to us about aspirational goals, work is just what you did to keep yourself alive. That the dreams her parents dreamt of chasing after weren't an option once they got to America. They had to work non-stop just to get by, as they lacked the educational degrees needed to earn more money. This amount of work is lacking throughout the trio. Even though they have jobs, they seem to be financially stable when they arrive to America. Herzog illustrates the dream everyone wants to achieve, but for most immigrants, they are unable to achieve, as it's more complicated than just working hard to be successful, like in their dreams. However, as the film progresses, Herzog starts to remove this fairy tale illusion of the American dream and begins to reveal the challenges preventing Bruno from achieving it, with that being the language barrier. In Leslie Gervais' field of vision essays and film studies, she states that the problematic power of photograph and film, and their apparent authentic representations of what actually happened, connects to Herzog's fairy tale illusion of what many think of for the American dream. With Eva being the only one of the three that understands English, she is seen having an easier time adapting to American life and is seen as the primary provider for the trio, as she pays off the house payments all by herself and is the designated translator for Bruno. This highlights how the language is not just a means of communication, but a crucial tool to gain success in the American dream. In Fahart Poppel's article, Surviving or Thriving, she brings up how many people are blinded by the beauty of the American dream without evaluating what it means to achieve it and maintain it. While the three were blinded by this fairy tale, when the truth begins to unravel, Bruno's the one we see suffer the most, especially as Bruno expresses his frustration in the scene.
Eva, ich habe hier eine schematische Darstellung dargestellt, wie es in dem Brunnen aussieht, denen man Türen und Tore so langsam auf der Feinart verschließen tut.
As a first-generation immigrant with no understanding of English or access to education, Bruno's frustration is conveyed through the figurine. Crumpled up and lifeless, the figurine symbolizes the dreams and opportunities Bruno hoped to find in America, dreams that now seem to vanish before his eyes. He feels helpless, unable to communicate, adapt, or come close to achieving success in this new country. As Popple points out, this belief that immigrants are better off here than in their home country sets a low bar for what it truly means to achieve this so-called American dream. In Jane Mount's reading, Herzog reflects on this shift, stating that although Bruno traveled to a new world to escape the villains who have been mistreating him, he comes to realize that this new world is even more difficult than the old. The language barrier becomes a central theme in Stroszek, representing a universal struggle faced by many immigrants in reality. Popple also notes that it takes time to learn a language, and that time increases with the age of migration, meaning that without a solid foundation in the country's language, it could take years before immigrants can even begin working towards that dream. This issue becomes even more apparent after Eva leaves Bruno. He loses everything: his home, his source of income, and the only person who could guide and translate for him, ultimately ending up worse off than he was in Berlin. Without a job or education, Bruno becomes trapped, realizing that his expectations for America were based off an illusion, and it is near impossible for him to come close to the American dream. While Herzog at times sugarcoats the true aspects of immigration experiences, he ultimately presents a reality. The American dream is not equally accessible, and for first-generation immigrants like Bruno, it remains unachievable.